Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys for coming. We have a couple Girl Scout guests that are going to lead us in the pledge. So if you could please stand and help them out. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you all for coming tonight. I want to remind you that this is part one of our forum. Part two will be on Tuesday evening, same place and the same time. I want to introduce you to Iris Nelson, who will be our moderator tonight. She is a longtime member and current vice president of the league. The moderator will state the rules and explain the format for the forum. Let me remind you that the moderator may interrupt the proceedings to enforce the ground rules and format agreed by the candidates.
Thank you, and thank you for the Girl Scouts who came tonight to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, and welcome to this two-part forum for the primary election on March 17th. The first session will be for the United States Congressional District 15 Republican candidates. After a 5-minute break, we will have a session for the 2 Republican candidates for the 8th Judicial Circuit of Illinois, which will follow. Both forums are being live streamed by WTAD-AM. Muddy River is recording and will post tomorrow. The League is also providing Zoom access to those who tune in. The League, active since 1950, is a nonpartisan organization that does not endorse or oppose candidates for political office. We facilitate fair, respectful, and informational forums that allows voters an opportunity to learn more about the candidates on the current issues. Our format will be as follows. The candidates have 1 minute for their opening statement and 1 minute for their closing statement. Candidates, please note that our timer is seated in the front row to remind you when the time has expired. And I think you're going to give them a 15-minute warning as well, a 15-second warning? 15 minutes, yeah.
But if I hold this up, it's time to stop.
Okay. So after questions from our panel, we'll take written questions from the audience. The panelists will have approximately 20 minutes for questions, and then we'll open it to audience questions. Please keep your questions brief and, importantly, addressed to both candidates. No questions will be permitted that are slanderous. Submitted questions may be edited for purposes of clarity. Each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to respond to each question. League members will be happy to provide paper and pick up your questions. At this time, I'll take a couple of seconds to silence your cell phones. Photos are not permitted on your phone or any other device. And lastly, please withhold any applause or demonstrating of support or non-support for a candidate during the forum. Our 2 panel members tonight are Bob Gough, publisher and author for Muddy River News, and Nora Baldner, assistant professor of communications at Quincy University, and also a co-anchor on WTAD morning show. Welcome, panelists. Now, I am honored to introduce 2 of the Republican candidates for U.S. Congressional District 15, Judy Bowlby and Ryan Tebrugge. Republican Representative Mary Miller did not respond to our invitation. And we have drawn straws, or drawn a number, and Judy will be going first. Is that correct? No, you're going to go first. Yeah, Brian's going to go first. So we'll begin by asking our candidates for opening statements.
I first want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. It's about a 128-mile drive, which is no big deal. The reason I say that is me to be someone who's present in the district. A little bit about me. I've been a public servant for 13 years. I'm a graduate student. I was raised by 2 union family members, so I'm in the middle class, so I'm a big advocate for trying to create good union jobs, but also keep middle class jobs here in the district. I got into this race because I felt like our current representative just doesn't listen to the needs of the district. She's busy chasing likes and sound bites rather than focusing her attention onto the district. And I think I personally want to change that. I want someone who's actually present, shows up in the community, and I believe in something called pragmatic government. I really want us to, everything okay? Sorry.
Judy Bowlby?
Okay, sorry. Okay, so like I said, I'm a trade advocate. For me, my 2 issues that I want to take on: Constitution first and district second. So I apologize for the confusion.
Good evening, everyone. I'm thankful to be here, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having me. Today is Lincoln's birthday, and that's important to me because I launched my campaign at the old state capitol in the house in the chamber in which Lincoln delivered his House Divided. And that explains why I got into this race. I retired a number of years ago, started watching the TV, and I couldn't literally stand all the bickering on both sides. The far right, the far left, and just nothing seemed to be getting done. So that's why I got in the race. A little bit about me. I grew up in a little town called Cerro Gordo. I was raised by my aunt and uncle on a small farm. I have to contribute to them all the values that I carry with me today. And that is, you work hard, you're honest with people, you listen to what they say, and most of all, you just be yourself. I took those skills to college at Eastern. I got my degree in mental health, and I spent a number of years helping people with a variety of problems. However, the last 30 years of my life, I have worked in Illinois and surrounding states with both Democrats and Republicans to negotiate legislation so that, it looks like my time is up. I'll have a chance maybe to tell you later. Thank you.
The panelists will now ask questions to the candidates. Ms. Baldner, your question goes first to Mr. Tebrugge, and the same question then goes to Judy Bowlby, and we'll alternate back and forth.
What are your top 2 legislative priorities for the 15th District if elected to Congress, and how would you work on them?
Though I agree, I think that issues are more than complicated than just tied to 2 issues. Mine would be job creation and energy. What I would like to do is create modular nuclear reactors in the district that gives energy and stability to the market, and it also helps lower our energy bills. It also, like I said, I was a trade union advocate, so I want to give us good union jobs in the district. As I drove through the town here, before I got here, I noticed that we need a lot of infrastructure investment. So by creating jobs, giving people a reason to stay here is the most important thing for me in this district.
I think the very first thing that this district has not seen is a congressperson who is present, someone who shows up. Mary Miller is not here tonight, and that's typical of what I heard when I was getting signatures. And the reason I know it's a legislative agenda, but you first have to be out to visit with the people and listen to them and see what the community needs. Now, when you're one of 435, which is what I would be if I won, you don't have a lot that you can alone get for the district. But one thing you can do is you can get what's called community project funds. Each congressperson has the ability to bring money back to the district. This district has not seen money from Mary Miller for the last 5.5 years. You have not gotten the resources that other districts have. In fact, every congressperson in Illinois has brought money back except Mary. So that if your towns are suffering, if your infrastructure is suffering, if your roads are suffering, if your healthcare people are not getting the resources they need, it's because you haven't gotten those funds. So the very first thing I would do would be to bring back those community project funds to this district, which are long deserving. One other thing, and I'll address that later, is the tariff issue. This is a big farming community. 31% of the business is farming. And the tariff situation has caused incredible instability with farmers. And it's trickled down to your grocery prices. And it's trickled down to small businesses who depend on those farmers to be able to purchase things from them. So I think Congress needs to step up and look at what's going on with the tariffs, and they have the ability to do that.
Mr. Gough, your question goes first to Judy Bowlby.
Ms. Bowlby, thank you for being here as well as you, sir. And again, it is very sad that the incumbent could not be bothered to be here tonight. You mentioned the big district, very large, and more square mileage than any other district in the state. There has been discussion across the country about random redistricting coming up with the primary. What is your thought? Should Illinois not mess with it now, or does Illinois need a redistricting as well before it's supposed to be done?
Well, if we're talking about gerrymandering in districts, I can talk about that. I was working with Democrats and Republicans in the 90s and the 2000s, and Speaker Madigan was well known for gerrymandering districts. And this district is a perfect example. It is the biggest district in the state of Illinois. It goes from the east to the west, and then there's a little carve out of the 13th, and that carves out some of the metro areas. There needs to be, I think, a redistricting. The question is, should the Democrats do it? Should the Republicans do it? I think one option we need to look at is an independent council to do that, because we have small towns separated. One town in particular, Monticello, separated by 3 congressional districts. How can you have town hall meetings when you don't have a common area? People, when I was getting signatures, people didn't know what district they were in. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to bring resources back, because those communities are unique, and you need to be able to address that. So, I don't want to overdo my time. I'll give Brian a chance. Oh, do I? Okay. Okay. So I would be in favor of making these districts make sense. If you look at a map in Illinois, and I did that for people when I was getting signatures because they couldn't figure it out, I go, well, you're here and you're here and you're here. So I think it makes sense to do it more of a population-based, community-based, and so it doesn't look like it does. Let me just say.
Like you mentioned, this is one of the largest congressional district in the state of Illinois. It's 17,000 square miles. Most of that district is rural, and unfortunately land doesn't vote, but populations do. So we need to put the attention on where populations are centered, and we need to actually have an independent commission. I think the problem is, is this a Democrat or Republican problem? No, it's an American problem. And Illinois is not short of any issue of this. I mean, other states have this. So we need to put an independent commission first that is non-bipartisan, that focuses on the populations and the needs of the district. Like Judy said, there's several counties that have 2-3 districts, and the problem is, even where I live in Springfield, you have roads that are literally the dividing line of where populations are. So I think the answer is an independent commission. But the answer also is, what do the people want? I think that's really what it comes down to as well. But we need the people's voice, but we also need the independent commission, because Democrats and Republicans need to learn to get along again and do what's best for the people in the district, regardless if it's a Democrat or Republican district.
Nora Baldner, your question to Mr. Tebrugge.
What do you think your responsibility is to follow party leadership, caucuses, committee chairs? If you disagreed with something your party was advocating, what would you do?
So I got into this race because of my integrity. This is not about left or right. This is about doing what's right. So that may be, if I don't agree with the Republican agenda, then I'll step up and say I don't agree. If I don't agree with the Democrats, I'll disagree. But really, at the end of the day, it's about how it affects the district and what's best for the country. And that I think that sometimes we focus on too much about left or right, and it's not about what's right. We need to focus on our integrity as members of Congress.
If elected, I'm elected by you, the constituent. That is where my loyalty is. That is where it will always be. I think parties are helpful for having guidelines and maybe principles, but if they're standing for something that goes against the people in my district, that's going to harm them, then I'm going to step up and say so. All my life, I have taken on challenges. And quite honestly, this is one of the biggest ones. Because when you're not an incumbent, and neither Ryan and I are, you're facing a huge heel. Mary Miller has a net worth of over $15 million. I can tell you I'm a moderate from the middle class. I have invested $14,000 of my money to be in this race. And I only have $18,000 in my campaign. So that kind of gives you an idea where I'm at. I think the parties need to listen. I think both parties need to listen to the people. Because that's why I got in the race. Because they're not. It seems to me, again, you've got a far right and far left. And what I found when I went out and got signatures is that we are not as divided as the parties are. When I talk to the people, they said, we just want it, quote, normal again. And so I really feel as a country, we're much more together, but the parties are in the extremes, and they need to really take a look at what they're doing and listen to you.
Mr. Gough, your question to Judy Bowles.
You had just talked about the financing and the money that you have on hand. Do you believe that in your position in running for this office, you should accept PAC money, or should you just go the grassroots route and try to fund your campaign?
Well, I would prefer all my campaign contributions come from the individual setting in this room. In government affairs, I saw PAC money, and I saw how it was utilized, and a lot of that is where that PAC money is coming from. PAC money that is coming from what I consider resources that are helping constituents in the district, that is different from PAC money from very special interests. It is difficult. It is very difficult to run for office these days. And one of the things that I was telling people as I went around, I said, you know, it's so important to go out in the primary, because candidates such as myself and Ryan were in the primary. You have a chance, if you vote in a primary, to pick a candidate that is a moderate, to pick a candidate that is more reflective of what you are. If you're middle income, if you're a senior and you're worried about your Social Security and your Medicare, if you're a young person that's just trying to get along. The problem is that when the extremes go, when the extremes get involved in the process, and they have all their people out in the primary, then you get X'd out because you don't have the money and the resources. And so I don't know if that is answering you directly enough, but I would prefer personally my money come from individual constituents. But you also have to survive so that you can get in, so that we can represent you.
I think it's unrealistic to realize that how much money influences politicians. And I think getting into this race, I've self-funded my own campaign with a few small donations from other people. And I would never take PAC money because at the end of the day, that's an agenda that you have to agree with. So rather than fighting for people issues, you're now fighting for a certain agenda, and I don't agree with that. I'm fighting to put the district first. And so what that means to me is I don't need PAC money to run this campaign. I don't need them to show up for me. I need just the people to show up in the polls, and I need people, and that's really what it is. It's not about corporations. This is about really the district first. And unfortunately, money does get involved in politics, but I have committed to not taking a single dollar of PAC money because I want to be answering to the people, not to special interest. And, you know, something Judy and I have talked about on the campaign trail is our opponent, Mary, has spent over $710,000. That's money that could have helped homeless people. That's money that could have helped people in the district, but instead it got spent on wasted on campaign funds. And I think that's quite sad, actually, to be honest with you. There's so many things that we could have done better with that money.
Nora Baldner, your question first to Mr. Tebrugge.
Once in Congress, how would you vote to address long-term sustainability of Social Security, Medicare, healthcare?
So my parents were actually recently put on Social Security, so I think I have a unique perspective on that because that's what my parents are living. They're living on that fixed income. My parents are very blessed that they get a pension, but not everyone does. So you have a lot of people that do actually live on fixed incomes. So the answer to that is I think government should lever its ability to, like Medicaid, where we set prices and then give a certain percentage of profit over whatever that cost may be. So if you have an x-ray that costs $1,000 to have, we'll give you a certain percentage of the profit. So utilizing and leveraging Medicaid and Medicare to actually set costs actually is a way to cut that cost down. But I also understand that at 36 years old, Social Security may not be there. So we need to give people multiple different options. Maybe that's an opt-out option. Maybe that's different. Focus on financial literacy when people are younger so that they don't have to rely on Social Security. They can have more options than a 401k, teaching them financial literacy about Roth IRAs. So I think there's multiple different things to address that. It's financial education, it's also teaching people opportunities, but also really holding businesses accountable to say, hey, you need to do more than just a 401k. And I think that's the answer, is financial literacy, but also leveraging our ability to actually set prices as well, because it may not be there when I get older, or they're just gonna keep raising the age, which adversely affects young people.
You know, if we think about where things were prior to Social Security, is that 50% of the people were living in poverty. So Social Security came into effect as a safety net, and many, many, many people depend on that. And there is no way that I would let anything happen to Social Security. It is an insurance for those people when they retire. And the one thing I've noticed lately is they like to talk about Social Security as a benefit. It is not a benefit. You paid into it, you earned it, you pay tax on it, and then later in life you get it and you pay tax again. And so when we look at what happens with Social Security, obviously I'm in the baby boomer generation, so we're living longer, which is a good thing. I think it's a good thing, personally. But what happens? We're living longer. It's being paid out, and I can understand the insecurity of young people, worrying that whether it's gonna be there for them. So the solution to Social Security could last. The solutions to try to fix Social Security takes more than 2 minutes. But I think one of the things we have to do is look at stabilizing the funds for Social Security so that so that we can have money for the young when they come. I'm opposed to raising the eligibility age for Social Security. One of the reasons for that is I see a lot of people in this district that do hard labor work, and their chance for injury if they have to work beyond, let's say 67, it causes more medical care because of what we find out in terms of Medicare, because they get injured because they work longer. Sorry. Yeah. Like I said, it takes more than 2 minutes.
Okay. This ends our portion with the panelist questions, and thank you for your questions. We'll now take questions from the audience, and we will start with Mr. Tebrugge. So the question is, what would you suggest to save farmers from bankruptcy?
Rural investment, community project funds, like Judy brought up, I think that that's important for this district. Understanding that the largest portion of this district is rural, so we need to have good crop insurance plans. We need to really invest in our farmers. One of the plans that I would like to do to make sure to keep farmers' money local is I would like to buy back some of the food that they can't often sell, and I would like to utilize that for student lunch programs. So what that does is helps the local farmer by giving them more cash for their resources they may otherwise throw away or not be able to utilize, but it also feeds children throughout our district. In the Midwest, we are an agriculture community, so we need to really pay attention to that as a resource, and that is something that we can use to help create jobs, but also keep Illinois on the map.
Well, I'm a farmer's daughter, so I saw my dad sweat it out every harvest on what the weather was going to be like and whether he was going to bring in his crops. So being a farmer is being a gambler. I tell you what they don't need. They don't need erratic tariffs being put on that keep them locked out of the market. If you look at what happened, they lost the China market to Brazil for an entire year because of the tariffs. So what happens? They're getting lower prices for their soybeans if they sell. If they decide to, they want to hold out on the price and they don't want to sell and they have to store them, there's a cost. And while we've seen the soybean prices come back a little bit, you know what hasn't come back is the cost of production. Their fertilizer, their seed, their equipment, none of those prices have come down. So one thing I think we have to look at in Congress is to make sure that we pass legislation that encourages competition and discourages monopolies. Because when that happens, the production cost goes up because they have less resources to bank off of. And then that affects all of us if we're not farmers, because the prices of groceries go up, you know, when we have tariffs on other countries. And it continues, the businesses that sell to farmers, the farmers are hurting, so they can't sell their goods to them, whether it's equipment or seed or whatever. So I just feel that there's a lot more that we could do to try to protect that farming market. One of the things I did when I was in college, I represented the American Soybean Association and the Illinois Soybean Association, and I traveled for a year talking to farmers, not only in this country but abroad. And what I did there was to try to increase our market, particularly in areas like Mexico, where they could use it in the feed. So there's a lot of things that can be done, and I think at the congressional level to help the farmer.
Thank you. And the next question goes first to Judy Bowlby. Do you think states should be required to turn over voter registration information to the DOJ?
No. I cannot see the purpose of doing that at this point. There were investigations about the election that went through the court process, and I believe those were resolved. I worry, it's our right to vote. And it's our right that be secret. That's why they have the little booths and you don't have to, you don't have to tell people how you're voting in case your neighbor feels the other way. So I think we have to protect that right. And I currently don't see a reason for those to have, for the states to have to turn that over at this point.
Thank you.
I would echo that. I also don't agree. I've been an election judge. I know what it's like to ask for people for their ID. I know what it's like to talk to people, but I do and sometimes, you know, people vote for different reasons, and maybe that may be something private, maybe that's something public, but I think at the end of the day we need to respect people's right to privacy, and that is something that I would full-heartedly stand behind, is you have the right to be private.
And this question goes again to Mr. Tebrugge. If the current administration asks you to vote a certain way, how do you respond?
Again, this is not about left or right. This is about what's right. And I think that the most important thing is keeping your integrity in Congress. I've seen too many members of Congress that just go chasing sound bites, or they want to win the next election, but they don't focus on the ramifications on how it affects our country. And I think the most important thing is really to always keep your integrity. It amazes me how many people are just willing to sell out to who their biggest donor is or to the party, but they ultimately do is sell out to the people, and I think that's disgusting.
My loyalty is the people who put me there, and that is not the party. If I have an issue with the party, I will be the first to stand up and tell them what the issue is. And that issue would be reflective of what my constituents are telling me. We have a congressperson now who mimics what she is told. She is not an independent thinker, and she is not anyone that I've seen in my time of being here that is staying in touch with the people in her district. And that is sad, because the people who suffer are you. So in all my life, I've stood up to whoever I worked for. I worked for a medical company. There were times I didn't agree, and I stood up. And luckily for me, I was able to convince them that where they were going was wrong. And sometimes you can't. And then it's a parting of the ways. And it never has bothered me to be an independent thinker. My mom taught me that, and I've practiced that all my life.
And this question goes first to Judy Bowlby. Mary Miller currently has an office in Quincy. If elected, do you plan to have an office and advocates, as well as town hall meetings?
Absolutely, yes. You know, and I know I've said this before, but I can't repeat it enough. When I went out on the campaign trail, I started late. I started 6 weeks. Everyone else started in August. I started about the middle of September. And I had 6 weeks to get signatures to get on the ballot. And between me and my small staff of 5 other people, we gathered over 3,000 signatures. The same as Mary, by the way. And I looked at Mary's petition, and on 800 of those signatures, I gathered myself. My name is on the form. Mary wasn't on one, which tells me that she probably had her county chairman or other people getting those signatures. If you're not out knocking on a door and talking to people, then you don't know what's going on. I had people say, we don't know who our congressman is. We know her and we can't ever get a return call or an email or a visit. And how sad is that? How sad is that? The people who put you there are expecting you to take their calls because they're hurting and they're suffering for a reason and they need your help, and you can't be found. No. I will have town hall meetings, and I will have places in Quincy, and I will have them in every town of the 35 counties that this area covers. It's an obligation and it's a promise.
When I was at the state fair, I found it really interesting because I did a radio interview, and one of the things that I learned is out of every 10 people and this is an average, out of every 10 people that I talked to, 6 people had no clue who, or didn't like Mary. 2 of them had absolutely no clue, and 2 of them maybe liked her, maybe liked some of the issues, but majority of people had absolutely no clue even that she was their congresswoman. So I find that kind of disturbing that when you have 35 counties and you're an elected official that most people don't even know who you are. So I'm going to answer that. The other question is, yes, I believe in proactive government. So what proactive government to me is giving a cell phone, giving a laptop to members of my staff, and I want them to go talk to the sheriffs, the rural health departments, and the members of the community to actually find out what they need. A lot of times when you call the office, you have a problem, but I believe in proactive government where you try to address the issue before it becomes a problem 5 years, 10 years down the road. Because if you are aware of something, you need to fix it. You don't need to keep kicking down the road, or the can down the road. We've seen that too much in politics now. And here's kind of what I would do differently than probably, I can't speak for Judy, but for at least Mary, I will give you my cell phone number. It's not, I'm a representative, so I represent a district, but I also represent the issues. So if you really want to talk to me, I have a campaign phone number, I have a cell phone number. Let's talk directly, because at the end of the day, and I can probably speak to this on Judy as well, that when you're responding, or you're emailing us directly. Mary has a staffer. So I think that that's what makes us very different. It's us directly that's responding, because at the end of the day, we represent people. We represent a district. We don't represent special interest. And at the end of the day, your voice matters.
Thank you. And this question goes first to you, Mr. Tebrugge. What role do you feel ICE should have in our area?
I feel like this is kind of a loaded question that's been on the campaign trail, but the biggest thing is I support ICE overall within getting illegal criminals out. I've dated women from other countries and other cultures, so I do believe in immigration as a necessary thing for our country. I believe that it brings educated workforce, it brings students and technology to our country, but I want us to get rid of the illegal immigrants. I don't want us to get rid of the people who can actually benefit our country as a whole. So that may be your engineers, your doctors. If you look at a lot of people, especially even in Springfield where I live, I have a friend of mine that is actually a doctor that has to go literally out of city of Springfield to get a specialist because we're losing talent here. Mm-hmm. So I support legal immigration. I don't support illegal immigration, but I do want us to keep our talent and technology here as well with engineers and doctors. So we need to invest in foreign students and keep giving them a reason to come here, but I think we should get rid of the illegal immigrants.
That question is in respect to ICE in particular, right? In
Yes.
terms of, yeah, okay.
Yes.
First of all, let me just say that I think everyone agrees that illegal immigrants that come here that are doing criminal activity or the dangerous, we all want them out. That I think we all approve of. In reference to ICE, let me first say I did a little research on this. ICE, in January, the training for ICE was reduced to 47 to 48 days. It was reduced from originally 16 to 20 weeks of training. Most likely your local police officer got more training than ICE. So that puts us in somewhat of a precarious situation when we have people with only 47 days of training out there looking for supposedly dangerous illegal immigrants. I believe that the force should be proportionate to the threat. And I think we all have eyes and have seen things on TV that we question whether that has actually been the case. Maybe sometimes it has, maybe sometimes it hasn't. There's also a due process in this country of how laws should be followed in terms of warrants for going into a person's home. The ICE situation disturbs me. I know that there are good people who have taken on that role and maybe are trying to do it right, but we've all witnessed things where it's gone wrong.
And one last question, first to Mr. Tebrugge. What should we do about the forever chemicals that we are putting in our food?
Like Judy, I grew up on a farm, so I knew where a lot of I also deer hunt, so I often say that I would rather us protect our natural resources, but also we need to protect our health. I think really we need to have transparency what these chemicals are that we're putting in our food, but I also am of the belief that very few people throughout this district, unless you work on a farm or grew up on a farm, probably know even where their food is coming from, or let alone how to grow their own food. So I think really we need to be more transparent about it, but we also need to be able to, I do believe that we need to be healthy. So the more chemicals we put into our food, we've shown increases in cancer and other health issues. So I think we need to utilize the FDA to really focus on and explain what these chemicals have an adverse on our health, because if you look at the European model, there are a lot of chemicals that we have in our food, Europe won't even allow into their food. So I do believe in trying to make America healthy, but I think we need to be very honest where these chemicals are coming from. But I also think people need to really understand where that product is coming, like where our food is grown. So I do believe people should have the opportunity to visit a farm, visit a meat factory to really understand what our standards are, but we need to be more transparent about it. That's it.
Well, I was fortunate in that I grew up on a farm, so I always had fresh produce. Especially in the summer, sweet corn, it's one of my favorites. So I think there needs to be a thorough investigation. I think this is something, like Ryan said, in terms of the FDA needs to do some investigations. The Food and Drug Administration needs to do some investigations, and it needs to be linked to the medical community to see the link between the forever foods and their ingredients that end up in our system. I think that we can all do more to live healthier. And whenever possible, I like to actually go and buy locally to local markets. But many people don't have that advantage. So I think there needs to be more investigation. I really don't have much more to add than what Ryan has said. But it is concerning when you read some of the articles and the microplastics and things that end up in our system that lead, or at least they think lead, to different types of cancer. So much more investigation is needed.
Thank you. And now we'll take the closing statements from our candidates, 1 minute for each of you. And Judy Bowlby, you will go first.
I'm going to stand up because I'm usually on my feet all day anyway, even though I'm retired. So I really like to stand in front of you because I am a person, I don't like any barriers between me and the people I'm communicating with. And that's the way I would be as your congressperson. Mark Twain once said, "Loyalty to the country always, loyalty to the government when it deserves it." Well, I've looked at the 15th district and you deserve a lot better. You need a congressperson who shows up. Mary Miller hasn't been showing up. She doesn't answer your phone calls. She doesn't answer your emails. She doesn't go to your town hall meetings. So come March 17th, I don't think you owe her any loyalty. You need someone who shows up. I've spent 30 years of my life working with Democrats and Republicans to negotiate legislation to help you, and I will show up. I can be there on day one in Washington to help bring you back what you deserve. Thank you.
My dad said growing up that Rome wasn't built in a day, but is worked on every day. So what that means to me is the fact that you take little steps towards progress. And I think that right now we are at a stalemate in our country, and we need to really focus on putting the Constitution first, the district second, and just focus so wholeheartedly on progressing as our country. A lot of times there's going to be hard votes, and I think what's different from me, and I would even speak for Judy versus Mary, is we're willing to show up and talk. we can think for ourselves, we can actually address the issues, and we can answer the hard questions. Even if you don't like our answers, we'll at least explain to you what's different from us from Mary. And I think the biggest problem is just lack of accountability in government. And I think that's from Democrats and Republicans both. And I think that that's where we need to just focus on the people and the districts. And people come first. And at the end of the day, we are representatives. We are not dictators. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you so much. And a nice round of applause. And we will take a 5-minute break until the second forum starts.
What have you been missing on Muddy River Gems? You won't believe your eyes. My crew and I have been bringing you stories for more than 20 years on PBS and now Muddy River News. And we're just getting started.
As we begin the second session for the 8th Judicial Circuit of Illinois, a reminder that we will be following the same format. The two candidates seeking a position on the 8th Judicial Circuit are incumbent Judge Chris Pratt, who was appointed by the Illinois Supreme Court in June of 2024, and Tim Bass, current Assistant State's Attorney in the Adams County State's Attorney Office. We will begin with the candidates' 1-minute opening statements, and the way the numbers were drawn, we'll begin with Judge Pratt, and Mr. Bass will follow.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. As I said, my name is Chris Pratt. I am a judge here in the 8th Circuit. I work primarily in Adams County, but I cover all 8 counties of the 8th Judicial Circuit. But I will tell you, even though it's the title I have, a judge is not who I am. It's just the job I do. It's a job I take seriously, just like the job that I had before that when I was a public defender for 8 years. Just like the job before that when I worked in private practice for 7 years. Just like the job before that when I worked at Elder's Restaurant for over a decade. I've worked hard my entire life. I've worked hard to get everything I've ever gotten. I was taught that by my parents. My mom's here tonight. My dad, unfortunately, is under the weather. They taught me to work hard and work for the things that you get, that nothing ever gets handed to you. And I've worked hard to get to where I am at every job I've ever had. I've started at the bottom and worked my way up. And I appreciate everyone coming out to hear from us tonight. Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tim Bass. And I'm running for circuit judge because I believe that all of you, the people of the 8th Circuit, deserve a judge who's experienced, fair, and conservative and reflects the values of the people that we're asking to vote for us. I've had the honor and privilege for over 3 decades to serve the people of the 8th Judicial Circuit. I've had the honor and privilege as an Assistant United States Attorney of standing before people such as yourselves and saying, my name is Tim Bass and I represent the United States. And during that over 3 decades, I've prosecuted every case that you can imagine. And over those 3 decades, I've upheld individual rights while also fighting for public safety and crime victims. I have a record of fairness. I've always upheld a person's individual rights, but I've also always fought for public safety and the rights of crime victims. I'm a true conservative in the truest sense. I'm for individual rights, judicial restraint. I have a record of fairness. And I reflect the values of the people in this community. And one of the most rewarding things about this campaign is that I have earned the support and the respect of not only people on the Republican side.
Thank you for your statement.
Thank you.
Judge Pratt.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gough, your question goes first to Judge Pratt.
First off, thank both of you gentlemen for taking the time to run for this important office. The Illinois State Bar Association poll recently came out, the Judicial Advisory Poll. I would like to hear from both of you about your thoughts on that, and were they a true reflection of your abilities?
I guess it would sound sort of pompous of me to say that I believe that it's a true reflection of my abilities given the various, the comparison of the scores between the two of us. But I do believe that it is a valid representation of our abilities. When I look at the bar poll that came out when we first applied for this position, and Mr. Bass and I both applied for this position back in the spring of 2024, there was a bar poll then, and across the board, I ranked higher than Mr. Bass in all of the categories. They were close scores, but I ranked higher in every single category. And now I've been a judge for over 18 months, and in those 18 months, the attorneys and judges in this circuit have had an opportunity to work with me and observe me. They already did that as an attorney for 15 years because my entire legal career has been spent in the Eighth Circuit, not geographically, but in the actual courtrooms and courthouses of the Eighth Circuit. I've worked with those judges and attorneys, and now they've had 18 months to see me work as a judge. And my numbers in the new bar poll that was published February 3rd are almost identical to the numbers of what people thought I would do as a judge back in the spring of 2024. And Mr. Bass's scores, who came here to work in July of last year, his scores were very close to mine in June of 2024. And since he's worked here since June, his scores have plummeted. The attorneys and judges of this area have now had an opportunity to observe him, and their opinions are not good. And I think that is a good indication. If you want a lawyer, you ask a lawyer that you know if they don't do that work. If you need a plumber, you ask somebody who used another plumber. In any profession, you ask somebody else in that profession for a recommendation. So I think that poll is very important.
I've tried to live my life abiding by the principle that you don't need to tear other people down to build yourself up. That bar poll, as clearly expressed on the Illinois State Bar Association website, says its sole purpose is to determine whether the candidates are recommended. We're both recommended. And I congratulate my opponent for being recommended, and I'm honored that I'm recommended as well. But it's fitting that that we're on President Lincoln's birthday, because he said that the people are the rightful masters of the courts. Mr. Pratt's entire campaign has been about attacking me. The rule on that Illinois State Bar Association website says you may not represent to the people that the candidates were ranked, or that you scored higher, or you are superior to the other candidate. That's an ethical violation that could get you disbarred or get you removed from the bench. Mr. Pratt has had ethical lapse after ethical lapse. He admitted yesterday before the hearing board of the Board of Elections that he violated the campaign finance law, and he's violating it here again today by saying that he ranked higher than me. He didn't. Both of us were recommended. As bad as he does not want this election to be held, it's coming on March 17th for the people who are going to rightfully decide who their next circuit judge will be.
Ms. Nelson, those were very serious allegations. Can I please respond?
You may respond in your closing statements, yes. Okay. And Nora, your first question then goes to Tim Bass.
The reason that both of you are running is your predecessor, the person who held the judgeship, was dismissed. If you are on the bench, how do you propose to rule, or how do you rule if you're confronted with a case where you might not personally agree with the law that applies to the case?
I would apply the law as written, not as I wish it to be. I've done that in my entire legal career. You know, one of the largest part of a judge's job is exercising his or her discretion. there's not just a law book that you turn to answer every legal question. A judge makes decision after decision by exercising his or her discretion. And do you know where that discretion comes from? Their values. What are their values? That's why I say, and I've said from the beginning of this campaign, that I believe that a judicial position should be earned, not appointed through an insider, non-transparent process, not selected by a group of lawyers, 40 lawyers in this bar poll, but chosen by the people, by earning the trust and respect of the people and reflecting their values. Judge Brenner said that just last week at the Tea Party Forum. And if I were honored to be elected judge, regardless of what question is before me on the law, I would apply the law, regardless of my personal position.
I've made it very clear during my time on the bench that the ultimate answer for me is following the law. I have done that much to my own personal dismay. I've been attacked by Mr. Bass and his supporters for months on end about decisions I've made from the bench, decisions that I did not personally agree with, but because I made them because that's what the law demanded. So not only can I sit here in front of you and tell you that I will do that, I can tell you that I have done that. I have followed the law even when I don't agree with it. It is an incredibly painful, difficult decision to have to do that, but I've done it. I will not hesitate to do it. My job as a judge is to understand the law and follow the law, and that is what I have done over and over and over again, and I've been attacked for it over and over and over again by misrepresentations, by bold-faced lies and allegations, and I'll continue to do it. I get pilloried on social media regularly for the decisions I've made in family court because people are not happy with those decisions. And I could make different decisions that might make more people happy, but that's not my job. My job is to follow the law, and that's what I've done. That's what I've done my entire career. That's what I've done as an attorney. That's what I've done as a judge. I've never been censured by anyone for not following the law. I've never been censured by a judge or court for not following the law. And I have done what I have been asked to do. I have represented the values of this community because I've lived in this community my whole life. But at the end of the day, if those values or my values conflict with the law, then the law is what is going to control, even if that ends up costing me. And if decisions I've made as a judge during my time as a judge cost me this election, then so be it. I've done nothing to prevent this election or try and put it off. I have been open and honest about everything I've done, and I continue to stand by all of the decisions I've made as a judge.
Thank you. Mr. Gough, your question goes to Judge Pratt.
I would like to follow up on my esteemed colleague's last question, and to both of you is, did you believe that Judge Adrian should have been removed from the bench? If so, why? If not, why not?
I will tell you that I knew Bob Adrian for a long time. I practiced law in front of Bob Adrian for a long time, and I liked him. He was an excellent judge. He knew the law. He did a great job as a judge, and he was merciful to people when they needed it, and he was hard on people when they needed it. But I will tell you, in that last case that he presided over, he made it clear on the record that he did not agree with the law and he was not going to follow the law. That's what he said on the record. And then when he was called on the carpet for that, he tried to say that wasn't what happened. But fortunately for everyone, for me, for Mr. Bass, for anyone else that's a judge, there's someone taking down everything that we say. So there was a record of it, and it was clear what had happened there. It's unfortunate because Judge Adrian was a great judge for a long time, but he did exactly what they accused him of doing. He tried to circumvent the law, and then he tried to mislead them about circumventing the law. And it comes down to he didn't follow the law when he had the opportunity to, when he had the job to. And I am not the candidate in this race who has repeatedly talked about my values and beaten everyone over the head with my values and my values and my values more than anything else. What I have talked about is my experience and the job I've done as a judge. and someone that talks about their values and wants to shove their values down their throat. If you want to run for Congress like our other two people, or you want to run for governor, talk about your values. My job is to follow the law. Judge Adrian's job was to follow the law. He didn't do that. That's why he was removed from the bench. It's an unfortunate story. I feel bad for him, but I believe it was the right decision ultimately.
I've met Judge Adrian, or now Robert Adrian. I'm pleased to know that he supports me. But the only comment I'll make about his removal is that I respect the decision of the Illinois Courts Commission, just as I respect decisions of courts every day. That's our system. I don't think I should comment any beyond that because I don't know the facts of that. I know the decision that was made. Mr. Pratt keeps talking about how he's following the law. He's followed the law. As I said, most of what a judge's decisions are based on are the exercise of his or her discretion. And the values of that judge are what inform that discretion. He keeps talking about how he followed the law. He followed the law. Just yesterday, he admitted in a hearing before the Illinois Board of Elections that he violated the law. And yet he tells you, the people of this circuit, the people that are here tonight, the people that were attending the debate in November, that he followed the law when all along he was violating it.
Nora Baldner, your question to Mr. Bass.
How do you handle situations, or how would you handle situations in a court where, say, a party doesn't comply with an order from the court, or something happens in a courtroom that gets out of control? What is your strategy for management of a courtroom?
Well, my strategy for managing the courtroom would be the same strategy that I've had for over 3 decades as a federal and now state prosecutor, to treat all people with respect, but as a judge, command equal respect. And with anything in life, we are accountable for our choices. And if persons in the courtroom, lawyers, or parties, or members of the audience were to get out of control or show disrespect, then I would be the first person to show accountability for that disrespect. If that meant removal from the courtroom, if that meant holding the person in contempt, those would be the options that I would consider, but always treating people with respect and holding them accountable for their choices.
This is a situation I actually regularly encounter. In family court, you might be surprised to hear that people don't always follow my orders. People don't want to cooperate with child visitation with a spouse or former spouse that they hate. Some people don't want to pay their child support. So those people are brought back before me, and I regularly have to hold them in contempt, generally indirect contempt, but there are rules for that. And I give them the opportunity to try and purge that contempt. If they don't do what they need to do, then it has come to the point where I have sent people to jail for contempt. Those are the rules. You have to behave according to the rules. And I enforce those, but I will tell you that I do spend a tremendous amount of my time and effort on the bench being respectful to everyone and making sure that I listen to everyone who appears in front of me and make sure that they feel heard and understood, even if I don't rule in their favor. So in the 18 months that I've been a judge, I've actually had very few people act up in front of me because I feel like I create a comfortable environment for people and that they are respectful to me because I am respectful to them. So when it happens, I take the action that's necessary, but I also defer to court security on safety issues because that's what they do, and they do a fantastic job of that.
Mr. Gough, your question to Judge Pratt.
This race, state's attorney's race, sheriff's race, they're all partisan races. There's no partisan or party lines when it comes to following the law. Why are these do you believe that these should be partisan elections?
No, I don't believe that they should be partisan elections. I think they should be elections based on the experience, the qualifications that people have. I'm more than happy to submit myself to the voter's choice. I've done nothing to prevent that or prohibit that. I've been openly running in this campaign. That was one of the questions that we were asked when we both applied for this position and I was chosen. If chosen, are you going to run? Yes, I ran. And I've run by the party that I associate myself with and whose values I live by. But again, I think it has little relevance to the job that I do. I should not be going to try and impose my conservative values on the people in front of me. I need to follow the law. And Mr. Bass keeps talking about discretion and discretion and discretion. The law, the things that I decide in family court, there are 14 factors in determining child or parental responsibility and parenting time. There are 16 factors in determining the modification of parenting time and parental responsibilities. There are 12 factors in determining maintenance, or what used to be called alimony. So while there is some discretion in there, the law is also very clear. And so it is not the Wild West where judges can come out and say, ultimately it's my values that determine what happens here. I have to follow the factors that are laid out in the law, and that's what I do. And I'm always going to do that. And again, if I lose this election because I've not run as far right as I possibly can and thumped my chest and said I'm the most conservative person in the room, then so be it. I believe that I got this job by working hard, just like I've gotten every other job. I started as a dishwasher at Elders. I ended up running the kitchen before I left. I literally started in the sub-basement at the courthouse, and before I left the public defender's office, I was the chief public defender. I was appointed by the Supreme Court to be judge because of my 15 years of experience in these courtrooms, in these courthouses, with these attorneys and with these judges. Nobody pulled my name out of a hat.
Mr. Bass?
Well, as I said, I believe that the people should choose their judges, as our Constitution provides. The appointment process is just that, an appointment process to fill a vacancy. The bar poll is just a process by which a select group of lawyers who decide to fill out a bar poll determine whether or not a candidate is recommended. But now the people get to decide. You get to decide based on experience, based on a record of fairness, based on whether or not the candidate reflects your values, which informs the judge's discretion. I'm the most experienced person in this race. My experience doubles Mr. Pratt. I have a record of fairness, and I have values, whether you call them conservative or far right. I haven't. I'm a conservative. And my values are your values. One of the honors of this campaign is that I have earned the trust and respect and support from people on the right to people on the left, including our city's mayor. The biggest honor of this campaign before the election is that the hundreds and hundreds of people that have honored me by putting my name in their yard, from Hardin to Manitou, from Quincy to Petersburg. You decide on March 17th who you want to be your next circuit judge.
And at this time, we'll move on to our audience questions, and thank you to our panelists once again. So the first question will first go to Judge Pratt, and it is, have you submitted a campaign financial report? And if not, why not?
I've submitted multiple campaign finance reports during the course of my campaign, and this will actually give me an opportunity to respond to Mr. Bass's accusations. What I can tell you is that in a closed hearing yesterday for a campaign violation claim that was filed by his campaign chairman against me, where they alleged that, one, I was several days late with a campaign disclosure. For that disclosure that I filed, it showed that during the months of October and December, I bought signs and some t-shirts. They also filed the complaint stating that when I first funded my campaign, which by the way, up through that reporting period at the end of December has been entirely self-funded. I have not taken money from other politicians or other political groups. It has been my money that has run this campaign, that because I did not file the right form when I filed that then I should be censured. So these are the kind of ticky-tack attacks that Mr. Bass has been using against me and people from his campaign. And he always points out, and in fact the complaint pointed out, that if a candidate or a member of the committee does it, it's the candidate's responsibility. I accepted responsibility for the mistakes I made, but in order for it to be a campaign violation, it has to be a willful mistake. There's been no finding of that. I can tell you that the committee officer, the hearing officer yesterday, seemed almost bored with those accusations. There'll be a board meeting Wednesday to determine whether or not there is a violation. And if there is, I'll accept that punishment because I did make mistakes. But it's clear that the violation report that was filed again by Mr. Bass, his campaign chairman, was a political attack so that he could come to this debate tonight and attack me about it because I misfiled some papers. And to say that that's me breaking the law and ignoring the law is a little bit disingenuous.
As I said, I've tried to live my life by not tearing others down to build myself up. Mr. Pratt's entire campaign has been about personally attacking me, accusing me of being a carpetbagger, that I'm running for circuit judge in my home community of West Central Illinois because I want a second pension. He stood before all of you just 3 months ago in a media-covered debate and accused me of violating the campaign finance law because I didn't have 4 on my signs. He was so jealous of the amount of support that I received and the amount of people that asked to put my name in their yard that he accused me of violating the law. Now, I received advice before I ordered my signs and after that debate, and my signs are in compliance with the law. When my campaign advised me of Mr. Pratt's failure to file his campaign reports, which is a requirement of the law, I said that the appropriate thing to do is to file that complaint with the appropriate authority, the Board of Elections. And just yesterday, he admitted that he violated the law. And you know what his excuse was? He wasn't a politician. As if any of you could go before him or any other judge, and if you were ticketed for a DUI or if you failed to pay your child support, you could say to him, I'm not a politician. And that's an excuse for violating the law. The only person that has tried to tear the other candidate down and build himself up is the person seated to my left.
And this question goes first to Mr. Bass. What does conservative mean to you?
Conservative to me means individual rights, that we're all entitled or have a fundamental right to equal protection under the law. To me, it means judicial restraint, applying the law as written and not how I wish it to be. My legal hero was Justice Scalia. I met him in law school. And he was the champion of judicial restraint. It also means, while upholding individual rights, fighting for public safety and the rights of crime victims, and I've dedicated my entire career to do just that. I have a lot of respect for criminal defense attorneys and private attorneys, but a prosecutor's job is unique, and his obligation is unique, and that's to do justice by trying to make things right by going about it the right way. In my entire career, have tried to do those things. So that to me is what's conservative. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm pro-life. But for my job as a prosecutor and for if I were honored to be a judge, the principal aspects of conservatism to me are the protection of individual rights while also holding people accountable and fighting for public safety and the rights of crime victims.
I agree with a lot of what Mr. Bass said. Conservatism is about the protection of individual rights. And I believe so strongly about that that I spent 8 years in the public defender's office defending people's individual rights. Their right to an attorney, their right to not incriminate themselves, their right to their day in court, to be represented by an attorney and have their constitutional rights protected, even if they don't have the money for it. I believe strongly in the Second Amendment. I'm pro-life. I've talked about that previously. My wife and I had a pregnancy in high school, and we kept that child, even though it made our lives a lot harder than it needed to be, and it made her life a lot harder than it be. Again, it's one thing to sit up here and say, I believe these things. It's another thing to have demonstrated with my blood, sweat, and tears that I've lived these conservative values. So that's what conservative means to me. Conservative also means to me not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes. I'm going to let it be to all of you people to just listen and look at what you've seen in the campaign. I've never, before right now, uttered the word carpetbagger in this campaign. I've never said one word about Mr. Bass trying to get 2 pensions. Now, if other people have accused him about that and he's defensive about it, that's fine. But they're not attacks that I've made. I've never said those things. I've never done any of it. My ads have been about me. My campaign has been about me, promoting myself. And I did point out that Mr. Bass's signs sure seem to imply that he's already a judge, and that I think that might be a campaign law violation, not a finance law, just a campaign law. But you know what I didn't do? I didn't run to the state to file it because I would rather win this campaign by talking about myself and letting the voters decide, rather than sneaky tricks and different things that have been happening in this campaign that I have held my tongue about all along. But you can make up your minds yourself, you're all smart people, on who has actually been attacking whom in this campaign. And I think that you'll figure out which one of us it is.
And this question goes to Judge Pratt. The candidates have spoken about the bar poll. Could both candidates indicate support from law enforcement that they have received?
I will tell you that, again, I'm not a politician. Who I've been endorsed by in this campaign are other judges, 6 retired judges who worked in the 8th Circuit, who worked the same job that I did, who watched me as an attorney, 2 of whom were on the committee that made the recommendation when I was selected to be judge, 4 other retired judges, 2 former Adams County state's attorneys, the current Pike County state's attorney. So people that work in and around the courthouse. Now, I will tell you, I'm a family court judge. I don't work with law enforcement tremendously, and that's something to remember about this job. It is not just about law and order. It's not just about criminal court. There are 7 judges that work in Adams County. 3 of them regularly do criminal court. 4 of us only do civil court, other things. It's not just about the endorsement of law enforcement. Now, what I will tell you is, what Mr. Bass is going to tell you is he's been endorsed by several different county sheriffs. He's been endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police. And all of his supporters say all of the time, ask any police officer, and they'll tell you who they support. What I will tell you, with the number of police officers, the rank and file officers who have privately come to me to tell me they're supporting me, I ask you, please, go ask the police. Go ask sheriff's deputies. Go ask the bailiffs at the courthouse who they're supporting. Because I don't have the endorsement of political organizations or other politicians who happen to be in law enforcement, but I do have the endorsement and support of the officers who do the jobs, the officers who come to the courthouse and see the works that's done. That's who I have the support of.
I have more than 40 endorsements by people, more than 5 times more than my opponent. Beginning with law enforcement. If I haven't earned the trust and respect of law enforcement, I don't deserve a single vote. Anytime my opponent gets presented with why someone doesn't endorse him, he just calls him a politician. He was over in Brown County speaking to the Republican committee just last week or several days ago, and when he was asked why he didn't have the support of law enforcement, he called them politicians. He has attacked our current state's attorney, called him a politician because he's supporting me and not him. This name calling. Look at the people that have endorsed us. From law enforcement supporting me unanimously, from our elected your elected congressman and congresswoman, your elected state senator, your elected representatives, your elected mayors, more than 40, that represent the broadest spectrum of the entirety of this 8th Circuit community. And the reason why they've endorsed me, from the far right of the political aisle to the far left, is because I reflect their values. I have earned their trust and their respect. And as I said earlier, the most honorable thing that I have earned in this campaign that I never imagined is that hundreds and hundreds of people would ask me to put my name in their yard. That is an honor of a lifetime, regardless of what happens in this election.
And this question goes first to Mr. Bass. Why are you the most qualified to serve as our circuit judge, and what distinguishes you from your opponent?
I'm the most qualified because I'm the only candidate with experience, a record of fairness, and the values, however you call them, that reflect the values of this eight county, 8th Circuit. As I said before, I have over 3 decades of experience serving this community, not as a criminal defense attorney, whose interest is solely the representation of a criminal defendant, which is an invaluable role in our justice system, but as a prosecutor, whose job is not to win but to seek justice. I've had the honor and privilege of a lifetime of serving all of you and all of the citizens of this circuit for over 3 decades, seeking justice. I have a record of fairness. I have always honored people's constitutional rights. I have exercised compassion, recommended compassion when appropriate, punishment when deserved. My conservative values are your values. So that's what distinguishes me from my opponent. As I said earlier, I have run this campaign based on talking about myself, not tearing my opponent down, which has been the entirety of his campaign. His campaign began by saying, I'm from Quincy, I buy groceries here and pay taxes here, and you should vote for me. He repeated that just last week. So that's why I am the only candidate who's experienced, fair, and has the conservative values that reflect the people that are voting in this primary.
I believe I'm the most qualified candidate because I'm the only candidate sitting here who actually has experience as a judge. I now have almost 2 years of experience as a judge. Before that, I had 15 years of court experience in state courts. This is a state court position. Mr. Bass has far more experience than me in the federal court system, but that's not the state court system. The state court system is different than the federal court. For the 8 years that I was a public defender, I handled more criminal cases than any other attorney in the entire 8th Circuit who worked in state courtrooms. I closed out almost 2,000 criminal cases in that time. In the 7 years before that, when I was in private practice, I worked in a variety of areas: landlord-tenant law, commercial real estate, residential real estate, farm real estate, trust and estate planning, trust and estate administration, contract law, business entity formation, business entity regulation, healthcare compliance law, contract law. I worked in a variety of areas. I have experience across the legal spectrum. Mr. Bass's experience is limited to criminal law in the federal system. Judges have to be able to do multiple different things. I have been the family court judge for the last 18 months, but I also cover criminal court. I also cover probate court. I also cover small claims and evictions and orders of protection. All of those things that I had experience with in private practice before my years, nearly a decade of experience in criminal court. My opponent only has criminal experience, and the vast majority of what we do is not in criminal court. That's why I believe I'm the most qualified candidate.
And this will be our last question of the evening. What is your position on the Safety Act and the elimination of cash bail? How have you demonstrated a commitment to upholding individual rights while equally considering the rights of the public?
Well, those are two different questions because, and I guess I could go back to Schoolhouse Rock here and give an explanation or give a demonstration to some people that need it. Because the Safety Act is no longer an act. It is the law in the state of Illinois. So any judge who is appointed or elected in the state of Illinois must follow that law. It is your obligation as a judge. It is irresponsible for someone to say, I oppose the Safety Act, because it is the law. Unless and until it is repealed, it is the law. And I will tell you that I have abided by the Safety Act, again, much to my own detriment. When the law required the standards of the Safety Act, as it is the law, required an individual to be released and not detained, I did that. I knew that I would be challenged and attacked for that, and I still did it. People say I made the county and the city more dangerous with that. A gentleman fired shots in the air near Quincy University, and people say, well, he didn't care, he just let him out because he doesn't care if it's dangerous. I've taught at Quincy University for 15 years. My daughter teaches at Quincy University. She takes my grandson there sometimes. Students from Quincy University are here tonight supporting me. I want Quincy University to be as safe as anyone else, but I follow the law. At the end of the day, on the second question, I support the elimination of cash bond because it should be the nature of the offense and the offender that determines whether or not they get out of jail, instead of just letting the wealthy buy their way out of jail where other people sit in jail. And I'll note that the Safety Act only applies to pretrial while people are still presumed innocent. So it shouldn't be money that decides whether you get out of jail when you haven't been convicted of a crime.
I'm a voter like anyone else. I have a right to state what my position is on a particular law. In 2022, when the Safety Act was passed, 100 out of the 102 counties in this state opposed it. They filed a lawsuit to challenge it, and the Supreme Court ultimately upheld it, and it became the law of Illinois. In October of 2022, Senator Tracy held a town hall right here in Quincy, and she had our state's attorney at the time, Gary Farhaw, our then first assistant, now state's attorney Todd Eiler, and our chief of police, Adam Yates, to talk about the risks to public safety that the Safety Act posed. And 1 week later, after that town hall, my opponent was interviewed by Muddy River and Muddy River TV, and you can go back and look at that interview. And he described the idea of the Safety Act as fantastic. Fantastic. The Safety Act has nothing to do with safety, just like the Inflation Reduction Act had nothing to do with reducing your inflation, or the Affordable Care Act having something to do with reducing insurance rates. My opponent had the ability to consider public safety and the rights of crime victims when he presided over a pretrial detention hearing for Darren Collier, who fired 12 rounds in the air across the street from Quincy University campus. He had the discretion. He was not mandated by law, just as Judge McCartney was not mandated by law to either release or detain Darren Collier's co-defendant, the less culpable one, the one who didn't fire the rounds in the air. Judge McCartney detained the co-defendant because he felt she posed a danger to the community. My opponent released Mr. Collier back into this community. There are two risks to public safety in this community. One is the Safety Act and dangerous criminals who commit crimes in our community. And the other risk is judges like my opponent who release them back into the community.
Thank you. And now it's time for your closing statements. And Mr. Bass, you will go first with your closing statement.
The choice in this election that's coming in just 32 days, ladies and gentlemen, is clear. The differences between the two candidates could not be clearer. I'm running to be your next circuit judge based on my experience, based on my record of fairness, and based on the values that I hold that reflect your values. I'm experienced. My opponent has demonstrated his entitlement. I have a record of fairness. My opponent has shown that he will violate the rules. I'm conservative. Nobody that I've talked to, nobody in this community that I've talked to has ever described my opponent as conservative. I've been a conservative all my life. And I'm not here pretending to be someone I'm not. So if your values are experience, a record of fairness, then and conservative values, I respectfully ask for your vote.
I'm going to stand because I sit all day at work, and I prefer to be on my feet when I can. I'm asking you to vote for me because I've done this job. As I said before, I fought hard for everything I've ever gotten. I grew up in a family with 6 kids that probably should have only had 3 or 4 because they couldn't afford all of us. But it taught me to struggle, and it taught me to strive for more. And that's what I've done my entire career, my entire life. I made life harder in high school with my wife when we had that baby. But all I've ever tried to do is put one foot in front of the other and do my job and do it well. I take my work seriously. And if you have any questions about the differences between the two of us, I would invite every one of you to come down to the courthouse and watch us work. See for yourselves. Don't listen to our words and our platitudes and our sound bites. Come watch us work at the courthouse. And if you watch us both work and you prefer Mr. Bass's work, then vote for him. But if you come down and you prefer my work, like almost everyone who works in the courthouse, vote for me.
Thank you to our candidates for participating tonight. Thank you to our audience for coming, and thank you to our panelists. And please remember that primary voting is on March 17th.